This is the 11th recipe for the SCA Virtual Cooking Challenge, and today we're going to make pasta. Now this is typically thought of as Italian's pasta, but this recipe is English. It's from an English manuscript from 1310 and then variations of it written after that. And it's called Cressee, which is a crisscrossed pasta. Here is another dish, which is called Cressee. Take best white flour and eggs and make pasta dough. And in the pasta dough, put fine choice ginger and sugar. Take half of the pastry, which should be colored with saffron, and half, which should be white, and roll it out on a table to the thickness of your finger. Then cut into strips the size of a piece of lath. Stretch it out on the table to be crisscrossed one over the other. Then boil in water. Take a slotted spoon and remove the cressees from the water. Then arrange them on and cover them with grated cheese, add butter or oil, and serve. So pasta is a dish that has been used for many, many years. The ancient Chinese have manuscripts talking about making pasta, and the Etruscans, who were in Italy before the Latin population, were also making a pasta. So the theory that Marco Polo brought pasta back from China to Italy is not really true, because they were already making pastas before then, although Marco Polo did mention in his book that pasta was being made in China, but it was actually different than the pasta he was familiar with back from his home in Italy. So today's pasta, we're going to use 2.5 cups of flour, and we'll start putting some of that on here. And 4 eggs. Make a little depression for our eggs. The eggs go right into the center of the pasta. Some pasta recipes call for egg yolks, or more egg yolks than eggs. In this one, it's 4 whole eggs. Got a little leak there, we're gonna dam it up. And 1 more egg. And now the fun part is just mixing this into a dough using the fingers. As the dough is too sticky, just add a little bit more of the flour. Now that the dough is a little bit formed, I'm going to sprinkle the ginger, which is a flavoring, into it, and sugar. So 1 teaspoon of ginger and 2 teaspoons of sugar. Kind of pat that in, start folding it in. With it. Work all of that back in. Altogether, we'll work the dough for about 10 minutes. Got a nice dough ball going now. The next step is we're going to color half of it with saffron. Should be about half and half. Here I have a half a teaspoon of olive oil, not extra virgin olive oil, which has a stronger flavor, but just light olive oil. And I'm going to take the saffron, kind of a big pinch of it because I want there to be a lot of color. So there's the saffron, and put that in the oil so it softens and helps to spread the color around. To color with the saffron. So I'm going to open this up a little bit. Don't see much red coming into this piece. So another trick might be to substitute and add a little turmeric, something that we know will give it some color. So let's try that. So plan B, we're going to add about a half a teaspoon of turmeric mixed with a little bit of water. Has a nice yellow color. Put some of that in there and keep blending and see how this works. I think that's going to help change the color a little bit better. All right, let's give this one more. Now it's time to cover the dough and let it rest for 30 minutes. Here's some entertainment while we're waiting the 30 minutes for the dough to set. This recipe comes from the 1300s, which was the time period of the great English poet Geoffrey Chaucer, who wrote the Canterbury Tales. The outfit I am wearing also is from that time period. I've written a poem in the style of the Canterbury Tales about the chivalrous knight. Chivalrous Knights by Nicholas Saint-Erne. Valiant warriors artfully skilled, wishing to make thy ladies pleased and thrilled, march onward to the verdant battlefield, shining in plate from the armorer's guild, bearing thy coat of arms on the wooden shield, and long swords strong and sharp and well oiled, and like thy metal swords thy nerves are stilled, for never will the knight consent to yield, although he be wounded and blood be spilled, puddled on the ground, clotted and congealed. But honorable wounds are nigh well healed, and then anon the noble knight shall wield lance and sword and spear, for thy fate is sealed, to battle forth until finally killed. Fight to the end when the heartbeat is stilled, gasp the last cold breath till the bones be chilled. Though our soul's final fate be now concealed, to noble knights heaven's gates are revealed, when laid in the grave and the hole then filled. And in fond memory a shrine will build, for the valiant knight artfully skilled, wishing to leave thy ladies pleased and thrilled. It's been 30 minutes, our dough balls have been resting. This one doesn't look a whole lot more colorful than the original, but we'll give it a try. So we'll start with each of these, kneading them out into a flat piece that can be rolled out and then cut into a strip. So the directions said to make it into lath, which in older houses before there was gypsum board and plasterboard, the walls were covered with lath, which are thin strips that would then be placed between the support beams, and plaster would be laid over them. The plaster would fit between the pieces of lath so that it would stick onto the wall, and the wall would be covered by hand with plaster. Now we just use gypsum board. The house I grew up in was built in 1925, and all of its walls and ceilings were made of plaster and lath. So that's something that was used even in modern days up until fairly recently when wallboard became popular. So I'm going to make this flat enough to where I can cut it into strips. Come on, I'll edit it out. So I'm going to experiment here with cutting the dough using some shears. And we want to cut the dough into strips. Let's work this one out a little bit more. And see if we can cut it up into strips. So instead of being red and white, it looks like my pasta will be yellow and more yellow with red spots. This dough handles very well. It's easy to work with. It's not sticky. I have more flour that I had saved to flour the board and the dough if necessary, but it's not sticking. It's very easy to work with here. Those and one of these, stretching it out a little bit. I'm going to give this a bit of a roll. This will fuse the layers together. I want to leave a little space between them though so that the water can get through so they boil and cook. Very interesting shape. I've never seen a pasta made like this before. Now I'm going to seal the edges here so they don't fall apart in the cooking by just pressing the dough together. But I'm going to try. Now this would be kind of hard to cook in this large piece, so I'm going to cut it into 4. And essentially what this is going to make reminds me of a pasta waffle. What say you? It reminds me of a ravioli with nothing inside of it. But one of the features of pasta, why they make all the different curly shaped pastas and whatnot, is so that the sauce will stick to the noodle and give you sauce with every bite of pasta. In this case, our sauce is butter and cheese. I like this. So these are fairly leathery. They're not sticky. They're easy to handle. And next step is putting them in boiling water. So bring the water to a boil in a large pot, and then put the pastas in. So in goes the first one. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. I think this pan is big enough. I can do 2 at a time, hopefully without damaging them. You can see how the bubbles are coming up in between the lattice work pieces, so I think that's real important in getting the pasta to cook all the way through, is leaving little bits of spaces. These boiled for 10 minutes, and I trimmed off an edge and tasted it, and it was al dente, which if you like your pasta firm but not hard, 10 minutes seems like it's good. I'm going to let it cook a little bit more. I might go up to 15 minutes and then try it again. The recipe calls for fresh grated Parmesan cheese and butter as a topping. So I'm just going to make some Parmesan grating. Here is our Cressee, nice and hot. It has a beautiful weave pattern to it. You can see the difference in color between the two doughs. So we're going to sprinkle it with a little bit of salt, a lot of Parmesan cheese. It's just melting right on that hot pasta. And some butter. Forks were first invented during the Renaissance by the Italians for eating pasta. And so we're using two-tined forks, which is what the original forks were, to cook and eat, or to eat our pasta with. The noodles are soft, but a little bit al dente, which is good. I think for the shape, you want them to have a little bit of al dente too, which is a little firmer texture, but not too hard. The flavor is really good. I don't taste the ginger or the sugar, so they're not sweet and they're not gingery. So I used a teaspoon of ginger. If you like ginger, I would probably maybe go up to a tablespoon of ginger. See if that gives you more ginger flavor. The sugar, I don't think you'd want to add any more than the 2 teaspoons. Definitely the butter and cheese are a good flavor to put on this. Although you could use a tomato sauce or other pasta sauce, Alfredo. It makes a very pleasing pattern on your plate for your palate because it's attractive, it's interesting, it's quite different. Who has seen woven pasta before? It's a very clever recipe. Makes for a nice showpiece no matter what sauce you added to it. So this is very simple. Be with the butter, cheese, and a little bit of salt. The flavor is great. If you used other sauces on it, it would taste wonderful as well. This recipe took a little bit longer to make because of making the dough, rolling out the dough, cutting it into strips, weaving it together. But it wasn't a hard recipe, and I definitely think it's very attractive, would be a great showpiece for a feast. I highly recommend this. And because this is an English recipe, I would recommend serving it with a good English ale. Thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying my videos. Please subscribe. Please share the videos with your friends and push the like button. Thank you.